Have you ever imagined losing more than 20% of your body weight, without surgery, without extreme diets, and without living in constant hunger? That's exactly what a new medication is promising. Its name is Retatrutide, and behind the scenes of scientific research, experts are already calling it the biggest breakthrough in obesity treatment in the last decade. But hold on, before you believe any miracle claim, you need to understand what's really happening, what's proven, what's still being tested, and why this drug is putting doctors, researchers, and even the pharmaceutical industry on high alert. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to hear could completely change the way you see weight loss. For a long time, the explanation for excess weight was far too simple and deeply unfair. If someone didn't lose weight, the blame fell on them. They were told they lacked willpower, that they ate too much, that they simply didn't try hard enough. But modern science has shown that this view was wrong. Today, we know that the human body doesn't respond well to weight loss. In fact, it actively fights against it. When someone significantly reduces calories, the body interprets it as a threat. To the body, losing weight isn't a sign of health, it's a signal of danger. And so, it activates a series of defensive mechanisms. Metabolism slows down to conserve energy. Hunger hormones increase. The body becomes more efficient at extracting calories from food, and the brain sends constant signals urging you to eat more. It's as if the body were saying, "We're losing reserves. We need to restore them fast." That's why so many people manage to lose weight for a few months, only to regain it all, and sometimes even more. It's not a lack of discipline, it's biology. For decades, diets tried to fight against this system and almost always lost. That's exactly why modern obesity medications began to emerge. To confront this deep biological defense mechanism, first came semaglutide, then tirzepatide, and now a new generation is taking shape, Retatrutide. These medications don't try to force the body to lose weight. They aim to reprogram how the body understands and regulates weight. And that's where the real shift begins. Retatrutide is a medication that is still in clinical trials, developed to treat obesity and type 2 diabetes. What truly captures researchers' attention is how it works inside the body. Unlike more familiar medications, Retatrutide acts on 3 different mechanisms at the same time, something that, until recently, seemed impossible. Let's break it down in a simple way. The first is GLP-1, a hormone naturally produced by the intestine. It sends signals to the brain, indicating that the body is already full. In practice, this means less hunger throughout the day, smaller portions, without suffering fewer cravings between meals. This is the same mechanism used by medications like Ozempic. The second is GIP, which helps the body manage glucose levels more effectively. This leads to 2 important effects: better blood sugar control, fewer hunger spikes caused by blood sugar fluctuations. Many people report that with this mechanism active, their energy levels become more stable throughout the day. The third and most distinctive mechanism is glucagon. Glucagon stimulates the body to use stored fat as a source of energy. In other words, beyond eating less, the body actually starts burning more. It's as if the metabolism stops holding onto energy and begins working in favor of weight loss. When all 3 mechanisms work together, something remarkable happens. Appetite decreases metabolic control, improves the body burns fat more efficiently. That's why Retatrutide has attracted so much attention from the scientific community. It doesn't just reduce hunger, it changes the way the body handles energy. And now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever used Ozempic, Mounjaro, or a similar medication? Share your experience in the comments, and if you want to keep learning about this topic in a clear, realistic way, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. The results observed in clinical studies with Retatrutide have drawn the attention of researchers around the world. And not for just one reason, but because of the consistent combination of effects seen across participants in multiple phases of the studies. People who used Retatrutide for several months experienced significant and sustained weight loss, something that, until recently, seemed almost impossible without surgery. On average, participants lost between 20% and 24% of their total body weight. To put that into perspective, a person weighing about 220 pounds could lose between 44 and 55 pounds and maintain much of that loss over time. Results like this were once seen almost exclusively with bariatric surgery, and even then, not always with such consistency. But the number on the scale was only part of the story. The studies also showed Significant reductions in abdominal fat, especially visceral fat, which is the most dangerous type, improvements in cholesterol levels, including lower LDL and better lipid profiles, reduced insulin resistance. One of the main drivers of type 2 diabetes, improvements in inflammatory markers linked to metabolic disease. In other words, this wasn't just cosmetic weight loss, it was a meaningful improvement in overall metabolic health. Another point that truly caught researchers' attention was how well the results were maintained over time. In many cases, participants were able to keep much of the weight off even months after treatment began, something rarely seen with traditional approaches. This led scientists to an important conclusion. Retatrutide may not only help people lose weight, but also help the body accept and stabilize a new, lower weight set point. That's why the scientific community has started to view this medication with growing interest, not as a miracle cure, but as a potential turning point in the treatment of obesity and metabolic disease. Despite all the impressive results, it's important to make one thing very clear. Retatrutide is not a magic solution. Like any medication that acts deeply on metabolism, it also comes with side effects, and that needs to be stated transparently. In clinical studies, the most commonly reported effects include persistent nausea, especially during the first weeks, a constant feeling of fullness, nausea after meals, episodes of diarrhea, a marked decrease in appetite in many participants. These symptoms appeared early in treatment and gradually eased as the body adapted. In other cases, however, the effects were more intense and required dose adjustments or even discontinuation of the medication. Another important point is that, because this is still a relatively new drug, there is limited long-term data available. This means researchers are continuing to monitor potential effects that may only become apparent after prolonged use, something that's common with any new class of medication. For that reason, Retatrutide should never be used casually or as a quick fix for weight loss. It requires proper medical supervision, careful evaluation, and clear criteria for use. Because in the end, the goal isn't just to lose weight, it's to protect health, avoid unnecessary risks, and ensure long-term safety. Now, let's compare these three medications calmly, because this is one of the most important parts of the entire discussion. Many people hear names like Ozempic, Mounjaro, and Retatrutide and assume they all do the same thing. But the truth is, they work in very different ways inside the body. Ozempic was the first to really capture global attention. It works mainly on a single hormone, GLP-1. This hormone has two main functions. It sends satiety signals to the brain. It slows down how quickly the stomach empties. In practice, this means people feel less hungry, eat less, and start to lose weight. The problem is that the human body is highly adaptable. Over time, it tries to compensate for the calorie reduction by lowering energy expenditure. That's why many people lose weight at first, but then hit a frustrating plateau. Mounjaro takes things a step further. It doesn't act only on GLP-1, it also targets GIP, another hormone involved in blood sugar regulation. This combination does two important things. Further improves the body's response to insulin, helps control hunger more consistently as a result. People often see greater weight loss than with Ozempic, along with more stable appetite control throughout the day. Still, the body continues trying to adapt. Even with two hormones involved, it can find ways to conserve energy over time. This is where Retatrutide completely changes the game. It acts on three hormones at once. GLP-1 reduces hunger, GIP improves metabolic response, glucagon increases energy expenditure. That third mechanism is the real game changer. While Ozempic and Mounjaro mainly reduce how much you eat, Retatrutide also increases how much energy your body burns. In other words, it doesn't just slow the input, it also speeds up the engine. This helps explain why studies have shown more intense and more consistent weight loss. It's as if the metabolism stops fighting against weight loss and starts working with it. But more power also means more caution. With greater effectiveness comes greater responsibility because of its broader action. Retatrutide may also involve a higher risk of gastrointestinal side effects, the need for more careful dose adjustments, closer medical supervision. So while it's extremely promising, it's not a magic solution, and it should never be used without proper medical guidance. In summary, Ozempic controls appetite, Mounjaro controls appetite and improves metabolic response, Retatrutide controls appetite, improves metabolism. and increases energy expenditure. Each new generation adds another gear to the body's metabolic engine. And that's exactly why retatrutide is being seen as a potential game-changer in the treatment of obesity. What has caught researchers' attention the most isn't just the number on the scale. The real impact of retatrutide lies in how the body behaves after the weight loss. For decades, science has observed the same pattern. When someone loses weight, the body goes into defense mode. The brain interprets weight loss as a threat to survival. And then it reacts by increasing hunger, reducing energy expenditure, intensifying cravings for high-calorie foods. It's as if the body is saying, "This isn't safe, we need to regain that weight." That's exactly why most diets fail in the medium and long term. But in studies with retatrutide, something different started to happen. Researchers noticed that in many participants, the body didn't respond with the usual resistance. Weight went down and, surprisingly, stayed down. This raised a crucial hypothesis. Retatrutide may be acting on deeper metabolic pathways, including brain centers that regulate satiety, energy expenditure, and what's known as the body's weight set point. In other words, the body seems to accept the new weight as its new normal, and that is a major breakthrough. Because historically, the hardest part of weight loss has never been losing the weight, it's been keeping it off. And that's exactly where retatrutide begins to stand apart. It doesn't just reduce hunger, it doesn't just improve metabolism. It may actually help the body reset how it regulates weight altogether. That's why so many researchers see this medication as a potential turning point. Not a miracle cure, but a tool that finally works with human biology instead of constantly fighting against it. Despite all the potential retatrutide has shown, it's essential to make one thing very clear. It is not suitable for everyone. And this point is extremely important because the more powerful a substance is, the greater the care required in using it. There are specific groups of people for whom this type of medication may pose real risks rather than benefits. For example, individuals with a personal or family history of thyroid issues need to be particularly cautious. Some of the mechanisms involved in these drugs are still being studied precisely for this reason. It's also not recommended for people who have had pancreatitis, since its use may place additional strain on the pancreas and potentially worsen existing conditions. Another group that requires extra caution includes people with significant gastrointestinal disorders, such as severe motility issues, chronic nausea, or inflammatory digestive conditions. Because retatrutide acts directly on the digestive system, these symptoms can be intensified. And of course, pregnant or breastfeeding women should not use this type of medication. During these stages, any metabolic change can affect not only the mother, but also the baby's development. So even if retatrutide is approved in the future, it will not be a one-size-fits-all solution. Medical supervision won't just be recommended, it will be essential. Because when it comes to medications that deeply influence metabolism, the goal isn't simply weight loss, it's achieving it safely, responsibly, and with long-term health in mind. At the moment, retatrutide is still in advanced clinical trials. If everything goes well, and that depends on safety, effectiveness, and regulatory approval, it could reach the market between 2026 and 2027. Until then, the most important thing is reliable information, not miracle promises. Retatrutide represents something bigger than just a new medication. It shows that science is finally beginning to understand obesity for what it truly is, a complex, biological, and multifactorial condition. Perhaps in the future, losing weight will no longer be a constant struggle, but a process that's more humane, more effective, and safer. If you want to keep learning how science is reshaping our understanding of the human body, metabolism, and health, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share this video with someone who needs this information because the future of health has already begun, and it's far more scientific than most people imagine. This content is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice. Results may vary. Always consult a healthcare provider before making significant changes to your diet or training routine.